Hello everyone and welcome back to Chris Aquatics. Now in today's video we're going to be doing another nature pond build, and this nature pond is going to be based for rice fish instead of goldfish this time. I saw how much you guys liked the last one, so I thought I'd do another one and do it this one a bit differently. So this is the rope bucket that we have, 65 liters. This was about $13.50. If you want to round it up, $13.50, I'm fairly sure. This is just under $10 for this entire bag. On the bag it says not suitable for aquarium setting, but I've used it in tanks. My mates used it in tanks and we've had no issues. The thing with this is it just takes a bit to wash, so I'm assuming that's what the problem is with it. But 20 kilograms, so there's tons of sand here for you to mess with. Now for the plants, I don't know if I'm using all of this, but Bunnings in Australia is a bit weird and they like to put things on clearance even though there is literally nothing wrong with the plant. For example, so we got this Alocasia Zebrina. I paid $6. It was meant to cost, what's that, $13.50. So we've got this to use in the pond, and this is to make it as cheap as possible. So I got all the stuff on clearance, and then we have two different Syngoniums of this type, lemon and lime, and then this one is Syngonium confetti. So these are $5 and this one's $8. Now in general I would say that everything here from these two and these three plants, that's $40. So that's probably the cheapest I'd be able to do this, and I thought I would show you guys how I'm going to do it. I'm going to exclude this plant as I want to keep it under $40. Probably going to use that as something else. But with these two being 10, this one being 6, this is just under $10 and that is $13.50. That's a pretty cheap pond for what I'm going to be doing. Also keeping in mind that we're not going to use anywhere near the amount of sand in this bag. We're probably going to use 1/10 of it, not even that. And these come into lots of different plantlets. There's probably 2, maybe 3 plants per pot, I'd hope. I'll take them apart soon once I've set this part up and I'll show you guys. Okay, so we're at the bucket and I've added some sand and I'll show you how much I've added. So probably about that much past my finger of sand, which is more than enough for this setup. Now just to quickly show you how dirty this sand can be, you can see the water has gone straight to like a brownish color. You're gonna have to wash this out for probably a good 5 to 10 minutes. Probably not that long, maybe 5 minutes, but it's best to do this, otherwise you're not gonna see anything and it's gonna make a huge mess. Okay, so we're right over next to the goldfish pond, which is the first one we set up, and we've got this one right next to it. So you can see that the water is clearer now. It's not going to be completely perfect, it has to take its time to settle, but we have cleaned out the sand. It took me about just under 10 minutes, and now we can start setting this up. Okay guys, so I thought I'd just quickly mention, I've had this pond for a little while and I've had different things growing in it that I've had over the last like a year. I think I've collected them. I forgot I even had this, but I found myself a small lily. So I've got 2 larger leaves, the more greener kind, and look at this one. It's a lot more different. So I'm going to be potting this and putting it in our setup. So how I'm going to pot it is I pulled some of the roots from the base like this, straight through the bottom hole. You can kind of see, and I'm going to set that down and surround it with all these rocks that I've collected that are more or less random, but we'll hold it in place, and then I'll top it with some sand, and we should be able to get some lilies out of this summer. Okay, so basically just did that, topped it with some sand. Now for context, I purchased one of these for about, I think it was $5 from a person locally to me. So I'm just gonna put that there. And yeah, so you can kind of get one of these fairly cheap. Okay, now with the Alocasia, what I've done is I've removed it and washed the whole thing, got rid of as much dirt of it as possible, and I'm gonna reuse the pot that it came in. So I washed out all the dirt from this as well, and I'll show you what I'm gonna do. So I'm adding the plant to the base of the pot, but I'm trying to get it as high as possible so that it won't be so in the water. So I'm going to have it around this height, and I'm going to hold the base down with some larger rocks and smaller ones, and then fill the rest in with sand. So with just those rocks, we've managed to get it to stand up straight like this. Now we're going to fill it with sand and add it to the pond. So that's this one done. We're going to add that also to the back and try to get these as deep in the sand as possible to secure it. Now just to quickly show the Syngoniums, so this is from one of the pots and you can see how many plants you can get from it. So you could get one right there, 2, 3, would probably be this whole thing here. There's a small one there which makes 4, and then you can get 5 and 6 out of this back section. That's 6 plants out of $5. So here we go. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all from one plant. This one's a lot larger and the bottom hasn't split enough to be able to separate, but I was able to get 6 off this, which is pretty cool. Okay, so with the Syngonium, I don't have this to a size like these where I can just wedge it behind and let it grow. So the only thing I could think that you could do with it is just try to see if you can shove it down this side and let the roots get water like that. So probably best not to go with Syngoniums, as it's not really easy to plant them. You can't really have the leaves underwater because they were going to rot from the base, I'm fairly sure, from the roots will rot. So you're just going to be careful. But we're going to go with these 2 as the main plants, and then we're going to put some stems in here. Now with Ricefish, they're very small, so I recommend using some Hornwort just to float around in your pond. You can plant this, I have tried, in a different pond, so I'll just lay that down there. So you can see the babies of my Ricefish in here, and then I've also planted some Hornwort in here. It's not easy to see, but it does plant and sort of stem out, but I prefer it floating like that, so I can recommend that to you guys. It's also very cheap to get to. This stuff costs next to nothing, and it should be very cheap for you to get. I've seen people selling it locally to me for next to nothing, or you could probably just trade some of your floaters to them and they'll probably be willing to do it. Now I have a bunch more of this Hornwort that I had in another pond, so I'm gonna actually plant this one. Realistically, you don't need to do much, just find the part where it sort of does like a connection point between 2 sections and just shove it in like that and it'll grow. Now there's a couple plants I'm trying in here. So this one's Ambulia. I had a stem of that, so normally that would cost you next to nothing. That's a piece of Amazon sword. I have so many of them, so I'm gonna try one in here. And that's a piece of Milfoil, which I'm fairly sure is supposed to go on ponds. I also have a lot of Val. A long piece of it at the moment, but I grabbed this from the back of my 2-foot. And there's a couple of pups on here, so I'm gonna plant this just behind these guys in the back left corner. Okay, so we have all the Val in, and this is as simple plants as we're gonna go. I'm gonna put some red root floaters on the top. I don't wanna go with Azolla because I already have plenty, but I'm gonna go with red root in this one. So now we're just gonna fill it up and hopefully not disturb anything, and then I'll show you what the finished product of this looks like before we add anything. Okay, so everything's in the pond. We've added everything, all the different plants, Amazon sword, Ambulia, Milfoil's over there, a bit hidden. I ended up planting all the Hornwort as it looks a bit better that way. I added a little bit of red root floaters into this, not a lot, just 2 pieces of it, and then all the other plants. Just a quick disclaimer, if you're adding Hornwort to chlorinated water, add dechlorinator. Otherwise, your Hornwort will be melted in like 4 days. So just so you know. Okay, so I've let the pond mature for a couple of days, just let it sit here and start to get full of random stuff. So you'll tend to find that different creatures from just out in the wild will end up in your pond. A lot of the time mosquitoes like to lay their eggs in here and they turn into larvae, which is free food for a lot of the time. My goldfish will eat that, but I just wanted to let this mature a little bit before I added any fish to it. So everything looks to be going well. You're not going to really see much on the Amazon sword, but it has perked itself up a bit more. The Milfoil, it's a bit more glare to see, but it has a bit of growth on the top. The Ambulia is a bit more obvious with a lighter green growth on the top of it. But we're going to be adding some snails and fish to this today. Okay, so I simply added a handful of ramsons, as you can see. I'm gonna just let these guys sit in here and start to fill the substrate with some food for the plants. Other than that, the fish we're gonna be adding are in this pond. There's some baby blue Medaka Ricefish. So I'm gonna probably net about 20 or 30 and we'll add them to this. Okay, so we left the fish in for a day so they could settle in, and they're in the pond now, so you can see a couple of them dashing around. There's a few different sizes in here, ranging from really small to a bit larger. It's a bit hard to see them, as when I end up covering the pond when it comes to the sunlight. But this is kind of just a basic small little pond. If I step back so I can get a bit of light, you can see. So this is kind of what I like to do. Nice and cheap so I can keep my fish, and I like to breed them inside, then move the babies outside. So I have babies in both ponds. That's how I do it. I ended up not having as much red root as I thought, so I'm hoping that this will just start to take off and it will grow over the whole top of the pond so that the fish have a bit more safety. They have some lily pads at the moment. The Syngonium's kind of just fallen in the water. I'm hoping for it to just prop itself up. But yeah, this is just a small little design that I've done. I hope you guys find this kind of thing interesting. Feel free to leave me some comments down below on what you guys would do, and feel free to share how you're going to do your ponds in the comments. That would be awesome to hear. I hope you guys enjoyed this kind of little pond build. I'm assuming it could probably be around under 40 bucks, to be honest, as I didn't use as many of the plants as I thought I would, but I'm hoping that everything grows in. I'm going to be doing pond updates when these come out. I'm probably going to do about a month later. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye-bye, everyone.